The Monkey and the Wedge. Once upon a time, in a bustling kingdom filled with life, there stood a great city where workers toiled daily on constructing a magnificent temple. The sound of hammers striking chisels, the scraping of saws against wood, and the chatter of laborers filled the air. Among the many workers was a group of carpenters who labored tirelessly under the sun, shaping stones and cutting timber to bring the temple to life. One sunny afternoon, the carpenters left their work for lunch, taking a break from the heat and their strenuous labor. Near the construction site stood a half-sawed log of wood. A large wedge had been driven into it to keep the wood apart, making it easier to continue sawing when the workers returned. Now, as fate would have it, a troop of mischievous monkeys lived in the forest nearby. They often ventured into the city to explore and play, curious about the activities of humans. That day, one particular monkey, more curious and daring than the rest, wandered into the construction site. The monkey was intrigued by the unfinished log with the wedge sticking out of it. He approached the log cautiously, his curiosity getting the better of him. He circled it a few times, sniffed at the wedge, and poked it with his paw. He had never seen anything like it before, and was fascinated by how the wood was being held apart by this strange object. The monkey decided to investigate further. He climbed onto the log and examined the wedge more closely. In his playful ignorance, he thought it would be fun to pull the wedge out and see what would happen. He grabbed the wedge with both hands and started tugging at it with all his might. At first, the wedge wouldn't budge, but the monkey, determined and persistent, pulled harder and harder. Finally, with one great effort, he yanked the wedge out. What happened next was swift and disastrous. The moment the wedge was removed, the two halves of the log snapped shut with great force. Unfortunately for the monkey, his tail was caught in between. The poor creature screamed in pain and tried desperately to free himself, but the log held his tail tightly, leaving him helpless and trapped. The monkey struggled and cried, but his efforts were in vain. Hours later, when the carpenters returned from their lunch break, they found the monkey caught in the log. They gently freed him, but by then, the monkey had learned a painful and unforgettable lesson. Moral of the story: the tale of the monkey and the wedge teaches us several important lessons. Curiosity without caution can lead to trouble. While curiosity is natural and often beneficial, acting without understanding or foresight can lead to harmful consequences. Do not meddle in things you do not understand. The monkey's lack of knowledge about the wedge and the log resulted in his misfortune. This reminds us to think before we act and avoid interfering in situations we do not comprehend. Actions have consequences. The monkey's playful act of pulling out the wedge caused him great pain and taught him to be more mindful in the future.